You don't do Gran Fondo every week. You do it like once a month at most, or once a year even. So you probably can just fuel well for that day and don't think about the energy expenditure and the energy balance. Just go with the high carbohydrate intake. Going back to doing my own Gran Fondos, I always like think how I fueled and what strategy I took. And actually, like thinking about it now, I feel like I always started with a high carbohydrate intake before already. So like I took a gel before the start, and in the first after half an hour, I already had the first gel to basically get to 90 grams per hour. And thinking like on the latest evidence, I kind of feel like this makes a lot of sense, because even though you feel like, oh, it's a 4 hour, 5 hour, 6 hour, 7 hour long ride, at the end of the day, it's actually that at the start, everyone really pushes hard because you need to position yourself and try to stay with your group, and everyone is fresh and just goes way too hard than what like you're supposed to go. So you need to, even though you wanted to go to make it easy in the first bit, you actually push pretty hard. And also because of all the positioning and like you're still riding in a big group of people, I think it makes a lot of sense to have a really clear strategy to start fueling from the start. Because later in the race, it will definitely happen that you might miss one gel, lose one gel, not get a bottle where you wanted to get a bottle, don't stop on a stop when you wanted to stop on a feeding zone, or something will happen. So I think from my perspective, I think it kind of makes sense to start fueling from the start. And I would definitely take the other strategy if I was doing a long endurance ride to progressively increase the intake. But when it comes to a Gran Fondo, I would start from the start and try to equally distribute the carbohydrate intake.
So I was going to bring up that point there, that it does raise the question of how that is going to start. Like, from the rider perspective, is it a case of I'm doing this and I'm going to pace it nice and steady and I just want to complete this? We call them spotties over in the UK. Or, as we know, the front end of Gran Fondos can be pretty hard racing and it can go hard from the start. And that, the substrate utilization is going to dramatically change how that does start, and as you progress further on into that race as well. So again, there's a bit of context there that you were able to disseminate and say, well, actually, they do start pretty hard, and therefore we might want to start fueling early. Whereas, as we go out for long training rides, we might want to progress that because we're a bit more in control of the intensity.
I feel like you don't do Gran Fondo every week, like you do it like once a month at most, or once a year even. So it's kind of like you probably can just fuel well for that day and don't like think about the energy expenditure and the energy balance and these things. Just go with the high carbohydrate intake, and I can say that probably like, yeah, in theory, like going super high with carbohydrates can to a certain degree like increase, I don't know, use of muscle glycogen if you overdo it, but just don't overdo it. Just go with like normal amounts, like 90 grams per hour, or and it should be fine. Like there is no harm in doing that. And yeah, like it can only be beneficial even for recovery after this session. So I would definitely not be thinking, no, no, let's progressively increase the intake. Perhaps, yeah, like if you like start with 90 grams per hour and for the last 2 hours of an 8 hour long Gran Fondo, when you're going super fast and like you still have the capacity to go with like, I don't know, 120 or something, then you can increase even more, but definitely don't go below and like think, oh, I will increase fat oxidation rates now. No, like this doesn't make any sense.
But we also forget in which and how that's done as well. And if you're taking this in doses, and you take the first dose, which is a quarter of that in the first 15 minutes, it takes time for this to go through the digestive system and ultimately get to the muscle.
Oh yeah.
And therefore, actually, it's not happening right there in the first 15 minutes. It might actually happen much further down. It's not like we're taking 90 grams on the 15 minutes and everything's going to go wild. It takes a bit to get through the system.
Well, it needs like 90 minutes to get peak oxidation rate. So this means that it needs 90 minutes before you actually see like very high utilization of ingested carbohydrate. So you're not like fueling for that particular moment. You're actually fueling in advance. And in 90 minutes, you will probably be in the middle of the big climb somewhere. So you will need those carbs then.